Silence, the absence of sound. It can be scary, unsettling. It may suffuse you with apprehension. It might simply make you uncomfortable. Why? Do we all feel like the pilot in that joke who turns to his co-pilot mid-flight and asks, "Where is this awful silence coming from?" And the co-pilot replies, "I think it's coming from the engines." Let me ask you this question. When was the last time you felt comfortable being silent? When you didn't reach into your pocket for your phone to check the news, the mail, the tasks in your calendar? Whence this fear of silence? What does it portend? What does it mean? I want to convince you today that we need silence to hear our voice within. And we need it to create and give meaning to our existence. I am by training a linguist, and I like to ponder the question of how meaning is created and how we use sounds to communicate meaning. There is a theory from this book which argues that we started to use language by first understanding sounds, by assigning meaning to the vocalizations made by others. And only later did we become capable of producing sounds and creating meaning ourselves. In other words, it was while we were silent that we became capable of understanding others, and perhaps ourselves. But how is it possible to go from understanding a few sounds to creating new meanings? Well, consider sounds such as s, f, sh. What kind of meanings do these sounds evoke for you? Did you hear whispers softly spoken, or serpents slithering through the grass? Did you think of thieves stealthily sneaking through the night to swipe your purse? Once certain sounds became associated with certain meanings, it was only a matter of time before variation in sound could create variation in meaning and could communicate variation in meaning. We have now traveled far from those primitive beginnings to a point where you and I feel that we could communicate any meaning using the sounds we grew up hearing around us. Yet there is also an inner voice speaking to our being without sounds. Some would argue without words. And perhaps this is why we have more trouble understanding this. I'm sure all of us have heard at one point or another in our lives a voice asking, or half answering, or skirting the question of the meaning of life. When we're children, when we get lost in a game or in a make-believe world, the meaning of life is all too clear. When we're children, the meaning of life is play. Later, upon joining the workforce, upon becoming active members of society, some of us hear a voice insisting that a job is more than just a career. For some of us, a job is a calling. For others, it's a vocation. Who or what is calling on you to be what you can become? Or do you hear the voice of destiny urging you to be what you must become? But is this all we are? Children lost in play and adults trying to fulfill our social roles? Isn't there another deeper meaning to our existence? I believe us, in this day and age, side with Don Quixote, who says, I know who I am and who I may be if I choose. Imagine a superior being. You could say it was God. You could say it was some extraterrestrial intelligence far superior to our own. Imagine that this superior being somehow communicated to you the meaning of life and all that exists in this universe. So now you have it, it's clear. In your mind, perhaps in a dream or during a trance, that superior being communicated to you the meaning of life. How confident do you feel about being able to pass this message on to others? Using sounds. You and I are not related to the ruler of the universe, like Jesus the Nazarene, for whom the meaning of life was simply love, love one another. You and I have not had Socrates as our teacher and mentor, like Plato, the Greek philosopher, for whom the meaning of life was a quest for the truth. Know thyself. You and I have not spent years in solitude contemplating this question to achieve enlightenment, like Buddha, the Indian prince, for whom the meaning of life was a search to see past the world illusion, Maya, to escape suffering. I submit to you that despite having that message about the true meaning of life clear in our minds, you and I would not be able to pass it on to others. In fact, I suspect you and I have trouble answering an even more basic question. Who am I, and what is the sound of my voice within? Why do I say that? I was fortunate to spend my childhood in a space-time called Communist Romania, where the only screen was the black and white TV screen, broadcasting only a couple of hours a day. The rest of the time it was just static, silent static. And when they did broadcast those couple of hours, the program was about as interesting as watching your smartphone when the battery's dead. The strange thing about these e-voices is that they never leave you alone. You get on the train, and there it is, compulsively in your hands or in your ears. You're waiting for a friend. It comes out again. You go to the toilet. Need I continue? I dread the day when they're going to make it possible for us to use these devices while taking a shower, because that's the only time I get to hear my voice within these days. Okay, so you're saying that these e-voices all around us have been getting louder and our voice within has become an often ignored whisper. I get it. Why should I pay attention to that voice within? What did it reveal to you? Well, think of it this way. There are two types of silence. There is the "I need to think" silence. And we need this silence for the big type of question in our lives. Am I in love? I need to think. Should we have children? I need to think. Should I take that job offering? I need to think. What should I wear for the TED recording? I need to think. Okay, I lied there. I didn't think so much. Then there's also the "this gives me pause to think" type of silence. And this is the one we're missing these days. Suppose you're home, eating alone. Turn off the TV, don't look at your tablet, no headphones. Do you realize that you're literally adding to and creating your body? Suppose you're later brushing your teeth. Do you stop to wonder where that water is coming from? You turn around and you open a door. Do you know who made that door? Let me tell you a story from my past. When I was a high school student back in Romania, when I was much better at listening to my voice within. I was taking the subway to school every day. And I remember this one day when this homeless kid came on the train begging for money. And this would happen quite often, in those days at least. You'd get pairs of kids, usually, and they'd get on the train and start singing or praying. And I remember how hopeless the whole thing seemed to me, how helpless I felt. Usually I had no money to give them. But even if I had, what good would a couple of bucks do for these kids? I mean, these kids are homeless. And then there is also the collective constant suspicion that somehow you're being taken advantage of, that somebody is manipulating you. But this day, you know, when this kid got on the train, I stopped to listen. And I know it's very easy and it's very tempting to simply ignore that voice within. But that day I didn't. So when this kid knelt and started singing, I knelt with him. And it felt about as artificial as what I'm doing right now. The kid next to me probably felt that I was mocking him. Other people on the train were, some of them were sniggering, others were just uncomfortable. But I didn't care. I felt that I could create some meaning within that situation. I could hear my voice within singing with this kid. Before I let you go to explore silence on your own, allow me to sum up my message in a poem I wrote. It's called Soundings. You and I emerge from silence. we then soak up sound patterns specific to our culture or society. Until finally, a voice begins to surface within us, a voice you might call the self. Certain of nothing but itself, the self starts questioning its own significance. Time stops, other voices are suppressed, our physical body becomes second nature. There's two questions. What does it mean and what do I mean? Become suffused into a single interrogation which seems to surpass all others in significance. This voice within can be smothered by the stupendously successful voices coming from screens, which stupefy us into addiction and sink us into a slumber of insignificance. Resist these surreptitious voices and sound your voice within. Thank you.